add value to your business, or do you want to just be this administrative person?
And often, if you look at your talent team and the caliber of talent in your company, they correlate.
You could hire the best person for the job if they were in your candidate pool.
All these individual employees, one by one, together, their voices all come together to articulate the culture of the company.
This is hiring.
Hiring on all cylinders.
My guest today is the CEO and founder of the Adler Group, a consultancy and training firm that has enjoyed meteoric success, helping companies implement the performance-based hiring program. He's also the author of Amazon bestseller Hire With Your Head, and more recently, The Essential Guide for Hiring and Getting Hired, and soon you'll be able to tune into his webinar with us, but more on that later. Lou Adler, thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, Rob, happy to be here.
So the webinar is called Refining the Hiring Process with Data and Real-Time Feedback. So one of the things that we're going to cover is building a feedback loop with hiring teams to sort of align recruiters and managers on candidate expectations, and a whole other host of things for that matter. So forgive my ignorance here. Can you just kind of draw a circle around like what is the feedback loop system?
Yeah, well, that actually sounds pretty profound, and at some level it could be very profound from a practical standpoint. At the simplest level, you're in the intake meeting, you talk to a hiring manager. I do not like skills-based job descriptions. I like, hey, tell me what this person needs to do. And it's usually a series of 4 or 5 performance objectives. Then I go on LinkedIn, and a couple hours later I come back and say, hey, here's 17 candidates I just found that look pretty hot. 3- and 4-star recruits. They're obviously passive. We're not going to get them. But if I could get them, would you even talk to these people? First, do you think they're good, and would you talk to them on the phone? So I've actually cherry-picked those names and candidates, and they look pretty good, and they're a little bit off the skill set, but they're top performers. And I do that for a variety of reasons, to get the hiring manager not to think about skills, but to think about performance. But the feedback loop is, within hours after I've shown the person, I've taken the assignment, I'm showing the candidates that I think could be good. So feedback is, now I'm benchmarking candidates against perceptions. If the hiring manager says, absolutely not, they're a bunch of junk, well, that's feedback too. So feedback is the concept of, as long as you have a target to hit, and in the webcast I'm going to say the target is a great hire.
Right. Well,
to start with a great hire, you have to have a great job. And a skills-based job description is not going to get anybody excited. And every step of the way of, now I've got some leads. Do I get feedback? And if I do, great, I'll keep on going. I'll try to connect with those people. I actually connect with those people, and I see if I can position the job as a career move. That's feedback. I then have the hiring manager meet those people, and do they think they're good? So I get feedback from the hiring manager. I even get feedback from my ads. So feedback is the idea that if you want to hit a target, you don't get feedback after you've already finished hitting the target. You get feedback so you do hit the target. So that's what feedback is. My background happens to be, Rob, and my first job as an engineer in process controls and working on missiles and aiming them somewhere. So it's just in my nature that you aim at something, you hit it. Too many recruiters and too many HR folks focus on a target, which I'm not sure is the right target, cost per hire, time to fill. But irrespective of that, whether it is or right, is secondary. The idea is, hey, what do we do every minute, every day? What are my recruiters doing hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, ensuring we hit the target? If you wait till after you hit the target to measure, which is historical metrics, it's too late to make much change. Just say, okay, make a change, I'll do it. And then they hit the target again, and the target keeps on moving. So the idea is, feedback is, hey, let's aim at a target. Let's have a sequence of steps to ensure we're on track, and let's see if we make that target. So that's what the essence of it is.
Gotcha. So sorry to mix metaphors here, but it's almost like a measure twice, cut once kind of scenario for you.
Maybe. But yeah, irrespective of that, you're right. It's definitely, so let's go with that. Yeah, I would not use the carpenter's but it's fine. It works. You're right. Hey, let's just don't deliver before you see if you're getting in the right direction.
Exactly. Yeah, that's something. I think the intake meeting is pretty common, and typically though, what I hear is recruiters kind of get their marching orders, like, okay, this is what the role is. Now let's go out and find the people and start sourcing. It sounds like your method is more of like, okay, now I have this a short list of really good candidates. Maybe these are and presenting those to the hiring manager and saying, okay, are these the right kind of people? Should I keep trying to find this kind of person? And so just kind of like a constant recalibration there.
Yes, that's absolutely true. However, my intake meeting is fundamentally different than every other recruiter's intake meeting. When a hiring manager gives me a list of skills, attributes, experience requirements, I say, this is not a job description. This is a person description. Let's put the person description in the parking lot and define the job first. Because we're going after people. A good person wants a good job. A good person doesn't look at skills and say that's a good job.
Yes.
They want to know exactly what they're going to do. So in my intake meeting is to shift the characteristics of, hey, what we're looking for is a person who can do this work. Now I'm going to show you people who I believe can do that work. So the intake meeting has a dual purpose, is to get the hiring manager to agree that, yes, we're looking for performance, not for skills. Obviously, if a person can do the work, they have exactly the skills. But most of the times, managers overspec the job when they're only using 20% of the skills. Irrespective of that, I got to also appeal to a candidate when I call this person up and say, hey, do you like this work? And can you do this work? And is this work motivating? So the intake meeting is the key, and most recruiters focus on the wrong target. And that's where I go back to the feedback is you got to be aiming at the right thing, and you got to use the right map to get to it. And a skills-based job description is not the right map. So getting feedback on the wrong map means you'll hit the wrong target.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what typically happens is, okay, let's make cost per hire the target. Let's make time to fill the target. No, the target is a great hire. And a target is a passive candidate. Passive candidates don't want to go fast. They want to go slow. But they might go faster if it's a career move. So that's the intake meeting is the setup, and the whole plan starts at the intake meeting. And you cannot hire a great person without a manager who's fully engaged.
Absolutely. You read my mind there because I was going to ask about the aversion to skills-based job descriptions. So why is it that you prefer not to have them at all in your job descriptions?
Not that I prefer it. I won't do a search without it.
You insist, even better.
Okay, so let me make this statement here. There's not one top performer in the world, not one, who after they come home from the New Year's Eve party and sit down and relax and throw their shoes off and sit back and say, yes, I've got another year of experience. There's not one person who says that. Not one. But you ask that same person why he or she took the job, they will tell you, I did it because this is work I want to do. It's intrinsically motivating to me. I'm getting feedback. I like the people I'm doing it with. And if I do it well, this is what I can become. That's why they take these jobs. So let's start with why they take the job. And we want people who are motivated and competent to do the work. Having the skills doesn't determine full competency, but being able to do the work, if they can do the work, they're obviously competent. They got the right mix of skills. Some people need 5 years, some 10, some need 1. Smart people need less. Average people need more. So why would you go ask for more skills? Ask for people who can do the work and find the work intrinsically motivating. That's how you get a great hire. So that's why this intake meeting is so essential to set the stage. You got to have the right map, but the map is not a skills-based job description. It's a performance-based job description.
I love it, and especially it sounds like it's really common for recruiters, as you say, over-spec the job description, and that seems like it could lead to candidates maybe even self-opting out, being like, okay, I don't have that laundry list of specific skills. Maybe this isn't a good job for me.
Well, they also opt out. Yeah, but let me say this. You all know that when you post a job description, hiring candidates never look at it, so they don't opt out. What I do is I change the rules with candidates. I post, hey, we need someone who can take our company and do A, B, and C. If you think you can do it, tell us where you did it. So I don't even do not send me a resume. Send me a cover page or 2 paragraphs of what you can do and we'll call you. So I changed the rules even that way. I said, now, that's where people opt out, is I don't need thousands of resumes. I just need a dozen resumes of people who see the job as a good career move. So the rule, but yeah, and they do opt out. I don't think candidates, you just look what you guys at Intello do. you have a system to take the people who shouldn't have applied to begin with and take them out of the loop because they're not qualified. I mean, that's what Intello does, and they do a great job of it, an awesome job of it. But imagine if you don't let them apply to begin with. That kind of changes the rules, too. So I tend to have a fundamentally different perspective on the world of recruiting.
Exactly. And so instead of asking for a resume, you're almost asking for a story or a few stories. Who are you, right? When have you done something relevant to this role before, as opposed to just a bunch of bullet points that you get with the standard resume?
You got 100%, Rob. I tend to make the posting very creative and compelling so it will attract someone like that. But frankly, the best people aren't going to see the posting to begin with. I got to direct source them and send them the email or the posting. So they tend not to. I mean, a few people would certainly apply, but I'm tending to look at my databases and my direct sourcing techniques and my referrals and say, hey, this is an exciting job. Here's why. If you're interested, tell us why.
What you get to qualify a candidate is not just a laundry list of skills. It's more of like a contextualized explanation on their part of why they would be a good fit.
Yeah, I don't want to be so sterile about that. Yes, that's the concept. Does it always work? Probably not. It's usually a combination of a LinkedIn profile and a couple of paragraphs. And I say, hey, Rob, this is pretty cool. Can you tell me a little bit more about this? I'm going into my hiring manager tomorrow. I'd like to present your background. Here's why it's pretty compelling. And that kind of nurtures the candidate. Oh, cool. They like me. Let me do a little bit more.
Right. So recently you were writing a bit about metrics, and metrics are more and more recruiters are starting to focus on this, and they're basically appreciating the part where they know it's important. But I'm not sure that there's enough knowledge around what specific metrics are the actual strategic ones that can drive a business and can drive business goals, as opposed to vanity metrics such as like activity levels. Like, how many emails did you send? How many candidates did you put in a list? So what, in your opinion, are some of those really important recruiting metrics that talent teams should focus on?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I don't know if I call them vanity metrics. I call them, well, maybe they're vanity. I call them useless, but that's a different term.
Yeah, vanity was my word, but yeah.
If you're not hitting the target, making a dozen calls or 5 calls a day to the wrong people and hopefully you get a hit. I mean, to me, that's playing a roulette wheel.
Yeah.
What I think is, what I try to do, so let's go back to feedback controls and use metrics as feedback controls. The first idea is, okay, I take this job description, which is based on performance. I go look on LinkedIn and I cherry pick candidates who I think would see the job as a career move. So I get feedback from the hiring manager. So I'm looking for a director of marketing for a small but growing company. I might go to senior manager from a bigger company and say, hey, I'm working on this director level spot. What do you think? I'd love to chat with you. If I'm looking for a VP at a big company or a small company, I might go to a senior director at a big company, or vice versa. Hey, I'm looking for a VP for $1 billion company, and you're a senior director to $2 billion. You might find this job pretty compelling. Whatever it is, I look at the candidate, and I don't need a lot of candidates. I just need to get high response rates. So then I go back to the hiring manager and say, hey, here's 20 people who look pretty good. What do you think? These 12, I definitely talk to them. Well, now what I'm tracking is how long does it take to get to 12? So I might send them one email through LinkedIn. I might then have to kind of figure out their home email. I might look on their connections to see if I can find someone who can give me a referral to that person. But I'm working what I call guerrilla marketing to get the group of pre-selected candidates to respond. So I look at the whole campaign response rate is a metric for me. My manager agreed to meet 12. How many did I actually talk to? 2? That's not enough. I got to get 10. So the idea is that's one metric is multiple campaign response rates. The second metric is I call the 10 people up, and I've got to say how many are interested in my offer. Well, I got to get 9 interested in the offer. So you got to ask the right kinds of questions to see if they're interested. My favorite question is, hey, would you be open to explore something that was represent a career move? Now they'll say, what's the money? And you have to go to the webcast to hear the answer to that. What's the money? I'm happy where I am. I don't want to relocate. I'm still going to talk to people and engage them in a conversation. So that's another metric. How many people who responded to you actually agreed to give you the call? The next metric is, are they actually qualified? So they said, yes, they talked to you, but are they good people? Well, if all of them say no, well, you got to figure out, hey, my feedback is I'm not getting enough people to say yes. I must be, my recruiting pitches must not be effective. But let's assume the recruiting pitch is effective. They say yes, but none of them are qualified. Well, then your cherry picking up front wasn't any good. But now let's assume your cherry picking is up front. You're getting an 80% response on direct source candidates. They're all agreeing to you, and half of them are actually, you could create a career move for them. That's pretty cool. Now you're in the game. Then of the other 3 or 4 that are qualified, you get 1 or 2 referrals. That's another one. How many referrals per call am I getting? So that's another metric. Now the metrics, that's a recruiter. Now I give them to the hiring manager. Hey, here's candidates I want you to talk to. And if they don't like all the 6 people, well, now you got another metric that you and the recruiter and the hiring manager are on in together on this concept. But what typically happens, which that's not an infrequent thing, recruiters look for more candidates to send, and they never get any closer to the target. They just now get desperate. Okay, I hope I can get someone just past these filters. But the problem is, because when you did the intake meeting, you weren't in agreement on what you were looking for. But at least you know. So that's another piece of feedback. Another piece of feedback is, and I just had one this week on a project I'm working with this big search firm, is the candidate. We get all of that stuff. They're doing a great job. The hiring manager loved the candidate, asked the candidate to come in. Candidate decided the job wasn't big enough. So I personally now have to intervene, but at least I know, and I'm intervening Monday morning with the hiring manager and say, hey, you guys, and I already talked to the president of the company, I said, your managers aren't very good at selling your jobs. I said, so I'm orchestrating how you get this candidate excited. I had to call him up and engage with him and find out and agreed with him, but I neither here nor there. That's a good piece of feedback, because my goal is, hey, I'm controlling the process at every step. So those are some metrics that give you insight in real time what's happening. It's not after the fact. What if I learned about this 3 weeks later? We had 17 people who said no. I said, that was 17 wasted calls from just intervening when they said no. I got, in fact, this recruiting group I'm working with, they were getting, all our candidates are saying no. Well, I intervened with them 3 to 4 hours of how to do it. Now all of a sudden, 75% of the people are saying yes. It's just a matter of recruiting skills.
Right.
But if I didn't intervene at the moment it was happening, I would have been lost. I would have said, and they would have just got more candidates in the top of the funnel, and hopefully they get one that falls out at the bottom. And generally the person that falls out at the bottom is the desperate candidate who's got all the skills, and the hiring manager's tired and exhausted, and they said, okay, I'll just hire the person. Our process is, let's identify what it takes to be in the top 25%, top third, and let's build a process that allows people step by step by step to ensure that happens at the end.
So
it's a combination of technology, it's a combination of jobs, and it's a combination of great recruiting skills.
I was just furiously typing notes throughout your response there, because there's so many things I want to follow up on. I didn't want to miss it. But while it's fresh in my mind, you mentioned that you say in the example, 17% or 17 of the candidates said no, and then just by reaching back out and talking with these people, you were able to get them reinterested in the job. So are some recruiters bad then at handling objections, like I don't want to relocate, I'm not currently looking for a new job? What are some examples of those objections that candidates often give, and then how can recruiters go about handling them?
And then we're going to do this at the webcast, which I know you're going to mention, so I'll describe more of them. But the biggest one is, what's the money? Oh, maybe I say don't ask questions that can be answered by no. Okay. Don't say, hey, I'm looking for a cost manager's position in Toledo. Nah, I'm up here, I don't want to relocate. Now, a better question would be, hey, would you be open to explore a financial management position if it made great career sense? And again, well, I'd be open to that. So I got some good news and bad news. It would require a relocation. From a practical standpoint, it's unlikely you're going to want to relocate. But if it's a 1 in 10 shot, it really accelerates your career, it might be worth it. But let's just, at minimum, let's just talk for a few minutes and let's see if it makes sense. Worst case, we can network. Now, that's how I would handle relocation. Somebody says, well, I'm happy where I am. I say, that's exactly why we should talk, because I know you can be more discriminating. But let me ask you this. What is the cause of your happiness? Why are you so happy in your job? And they tell me, I said, is there anything about your job you don't like? I said, well, this job I've got actually changes the mix of work, so you're working more in a high-level design and mentoring people as opposed to working on maintenance work. So this actually might be a job that, so when people say, I'm happy where I am, that's a bunch of BS. It just means they don't want to talk to the recruiter.
Right.
So you just say, okay, that's great. That's exactly why we should talk, because you're going to be very discriminating. By the way, do you mind if I ask you what makes you happy? And they tell you. And I said, is there anything about your job you don't like? And they tell you that too. And they say, and if your job just happens to meet that, minimize that pain, then you got a chance to recruit. But if you didn't even, I said, okay, do you know anybody? When somebody says, I'm happy where I'm, oh, that's too bad. Do you know anybody? No, I'll get back to you. On the other hand, you have the conversation, you think the candidate, I don't think this job's big enough for you, Rob. But I see you're connected to Bill Smith and Karen Jones. What do you think of, I can connect with them on LinkedIn and search on their connections.
Right.
Or I can get a referral. Hey, Rob, this is not a big enough job for you. Is there anybody you could hire, if you could, that you would think would see this job as a career move? Who's the best person? And the best person who's not looking. Well, the best person I know is not looking, but it's Bill Smith. Well, can I use your name? So now if I get a referral, I said, hey, Rob Stevenson suggested I call. I already know Bill's good because you told me he was good, and he'll call me back. All I have to do is ask him, hey, Bill, would you be open to talk about something that would represent a career opportunity? Well, I'm happy where I am. Then you go back to your pitches and overcoming objections. That's the key that I think most recruiters, yes, feedback control, knowing the job, but if you can't talk to people on the phone, you're just going to get a desperate, and I think most recruiters are afraid to get, no, that's not true. I think most corporate recruiters are dealing with too many candidates that they're not going to hire. I suggest is they work on fewer searches at any one time. They close them quicker because they can focus on 5 or 6 or 7 assignments, kill them, and then move on to 5 or 6 or 7. The number of placements they make per month will be exactly the same, but they're not going to be, because they're going to laser focus on more time with fewer candidates, fewer search assignments. They'll make just as many placements per year, and they'll be better placements. And that's what feedback controls can accomplish at the let's call it the higher level, the strategic level.
Getting a referral from a non-interested candidate is a tricky piece, and I'm not sure a lot of recruiters are sure what part in the process to do it. It sounds like it's almost in handling an objection. It's basically like, okay, so you are. Why is that the good stage to then ask a candidate for a referral?
No, it's not. It's not a good stage then. Nobody will give you a referral of a good candidate to somebody they don't know. So I'm a recruiter. I don't know this candidate. You're not going to get a referral from that. This becomes a very cold conversation when you don't know somebody. So part of what you're trying to do in that first 10 or 15 minutes, number one, you got to get them on the phone. You have to engage them in a conversation. You have to say, hey, it could be networking if the job, and you start asking questions. And the key is you do not tell the candidate anything about the job. I say, hey, Rob, would you be open to talk about something that would represent a real career move? And let's assume I overcome the objection and say, great. Let's see if it's a career move, then we'll see if it makes sense. Rob, let's go through your LinkedIn profile. And it takes 5 or 6 or 7 minutes. What I'm looking for is, I call this my 30% solution. I'm looking for, and I might see, so you might say, yeah, I'll be happy to talk to you. You said it's a career move. What's a career move? I said, Rob, to me, a career move is I've got to give you at least a 30% non-monetary increase. Well, that sounds interesting. What is that? The job has to have more stretch, meaning it's a bigger job, more people, more budget. You're doing more fun work. Job growth, meaning the opportunity to grow is more significant. The impact, the job is more important to the company's success. And job the mix of work you're doing is more satisfying. I got to get at least 30%. Any compensation hit is going to be on top of that. So what I'd like to do is just go through your background real quickly. That'll give me a sense of the job, what you're doing, and I'll give you, if I think there's at least 30% there, I'll tell you about it, and we'll schedule some time to get serious. And we don't have to hurry, but I take the pressure off. That's pretty much the way I do it. Then I say, hey, Robbie, I really like your background. I love the work you're doing. This is going to be some architectural work, but there's also some, you've said you've only managed 2 people directly. Well, this has got 4 people, and we're going to be hiring 2 more in a department, so mentoring others is critical, and that could be a bit of a concern to me. But if we can pull it off, I'm willing to talk with you further, but you got to recognize this is going to be a big management increase in scope and responsibility, probably not going to be a big budget increase. If you're okay with that, or a comp increase, if you're okay with that, I'd like to schedule some time the next day or 2 to talk in more depth. So you get to know the job better and I get to know you better. So that's how it works. And then but let's assume I win the conversation, I say, Rob, it's not a big enough job for you. I said, so that's at that point in time, after 7 or 8 or 10 minutes, where I've developed a relationship, that's the point in time that I'd say I would try to get referral. Hey, Rob, I love your background. Let's stay connected. And I connect on LinkedIn. I don't even have to ask for referrals at that point in time. Hey, Rob, I was thinking of you the other day. We chatted last week. Can we connect on LinkedIn? I know we connected on LinkedIn. There's a couple. I didn't realize you worked at XYZ company. Was there anybody there? Either your connections might be open, or I could say, was there anybody there you thought was really good that could do this? Because I think if that position gets filled, we might have a couple slots for you coming up. So you have to develop a relationship with these people. So now think about this if you're a recruiter listening to this. When you call someone whom you know, the conversation is totally different. Hey, Rob, how you doing? It's Lou. Hey, I got the spots just come up for senior product marketing person. I was thinking of you. Would it make sense to get serious about this? No, okay. Well, let me ask you this. Who would you know? Let me tell you a little bit about the job. So once you develop a relationship, these walls of trust or the walls of distrust don't exist. You're already in a conversation. So the idea of the first call with someone who you don't know is to break down those walls of trust, but control the conversation so that you, the recruiter, can get the candidate to tell you about him or herself, and then you can position your job as a career move. If it possibly is a career move. If not, then you'll have to network with a person.
Yeah, absolutely. And those walls of distrust, they seem to go up at stages where maybe you're recommending a job to someone that doesn't represent a significant career move, or where you front load and hit them with a stock email that's a lot of details that, like, right up front, that's this is in Toledo or whatever your example was. And recruiters can do can go a long way towards those walls of distrust never going up by doing it this way.
Think about it. The reason that candidates don't trust recruiters is because they push this heavy sales job on them.
Yeah.
This is an awesome job. You're going to love it. And I said, well, tell me about the job, and they don't know it. So it's the thing that I tell recruiters in our training classes. I said, what do you think when a salesman tries to sell you something, a product, a car, anything, that person doesn't have a clue. They're just looking at it for the sale. Well, you as a recruiter aren't going to trust the person. Well, now you're trying to affect a person's life with a job, and you're selling all this smoke and mirrors and hyperbole. They don't trust you. That's why you got to get them to talk first. So I might say, hey, Rob, I'm working on a bunch of senior marketing positions. I think one of them, let me just ask you this. If one of them made good career sense, would you be open to at least chat about it? Now, the person then can't say, well, what's the comp and all that, because you've prevented, I'm handling multiple. Well, if you're a more senior level person, Rob, we'll target that one. So just by saying, hey, Rob, I'm working on a bunch of senior level spots. If one of them made sense, would you at least be open to chat? And most people will then. If you with a couple of objections, then you say, but the key is you got to get the candidate to talk first, and then you can then determine if the candidate fits one of the spots. And you're also building a relationship at the same time. If you filter out the conversation on how much money are you making up front, or the candidate does, you stop everything. It's a waste of time. People don't. I told some recruiter this morning, I said, money should not be used as a filter. It should be used as a negotiating item. Yeah, it's always important up front. But if they see the job as a career move, instead of a 20% increase, they'll take a 5% increase. Your job is to not negotiate the money, put all the stuff that can be negotiated in the parking lot and have a career discussion. And then bringing the negotiable stuff out of the parking lot when you're in the game.
Lou, this is amazing, but I suspect we're getting treacherously close to webinar content, and Kat will kill me if we just give it all away up front. So this. No,
I've kept my best stuff away. So Kat, don't worry. I've just given the tip of the iceberg away. We're going to really get some hot stuff at the webcast.
I love it. Lou, this has been amazing. There's much, much more to come at the webinar. Can't wait for that. Thank you so much for calling in and joining me. This has been a blast.
Great. Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Be good.
Yep.
Bye now.
Take care, Lou. Again, that was Lou Adler, CEO and founder of the Adler Group, best-selling author of multiple recruitment books, and he has a whole bevy of other accolades to his name. Most recent of which will be the webinar he is conducting with us on October the 13th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. There is a link to registering for that in this episode description. It's called Refining the Hiring Process with Data and Real-Time Feedback. He's going to be expanding on all the stuff he talked about here. You heard him say he's held on to the best stuff for the webinar. It's going to be an amazing event. Do not miss it. Other than that, my friends out there in podcast land, I will simply say thank you so much once more for tuning in. I've been Rob Stevenson. You've been amazing, wonderful, talented recruiters. Have a spectacular week and happy hunting.